What else can we discuss in Nigeria at this time? Obviously, it's all about petrol price, subsidy or not, the future of it. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. And we will continue where Sunrise Daily stopped today. It's everybody's business today, not just business is business. But first of all, let's look at what happened to the Naira, the close of trade yesterday. There was no intervention from the central bank yesterday. Unfortunately, there was a drop in the value of the Naira. So we see the NFM opened at 1,561. Remember that massive gain the day before because of the intervention from central bank. But no intervention yesterday. A whole 4%, more than 4% drop is what we saw. And that's about 63 Naira 38 kobo to close at 1,625 Naira 13 kobo. For NAFEX, there was also a drop, but not so much. It doesn't bear as much demand as the NFM. So NAFEX closed at 1,640 Naira 72 kobo, having lost just about 9 Naira 80 kobo at the close of trade. Now, in a bid to make it easier for taxpayers and satisfy them more, the Federal Inland Revenue Service has launched an unstructured supplementary service data, USSD. The code is star 829 hash. That's what they call it, and they say specifically to improve taxpayers' satisfaction. So there you have it, star 829 hash. And the initiative, they say, will make Nigeria the 6th African country to deploy USSD code for simplifying tax payment processes. Was launched by the FIRS chairman, Mr. Zaka Dedeji, and a statement by his special advisor on media, Mr. Daria Dekombi, says that it can be done. Taxpayers can do this on any mobile telecommunication network in the country, and they can now get across to FIRS real time on issues relating to retrieval of taxpayers' identification number, that's TIN, verification of tax, clarification, a clearance certificate, information on tax types and rates, and locate the nearest FIRS office, as well as get answers on general tax-related inquiries. And they do emphasize that you can actually do this without the use of data or active data on your phone. Now to one of the hottest topics today, the oil. Globally and in Nigeria, it's oil. Oil prices rose on Thursday, and because of a spike in fuel demand as a major storm barreled into Florida, and concerns about the potential supply disruption in the Middle East amidst heightened tension between Israel and major oil producer Iran. Brent, we see for this morning, is up 0.3%, $76.82 a barrel, while WTI is up 0.4%. The world's largest oil producer and consumer has been hit by that major storm. Hurricane Milton is ravaging the United States now. We've seen videos of people having to leave their homes. Obviously, those areas that have to do with oil production are also affected, and this has made landfall on Florida's west coast, sprawling tornadoes and threatening surges of seawater. The storm has already driven up demand for gasoline in the state. That's in Florida, with about a quarter of fuel stations selling out of supplies, which has helped to support crude prices. And we know that the President Joe Biden has been talking about that and some strategies that the U.S. is employing to come to people's aid at this time. And don't forget, we still have the Middle East issue. Israel plans concerning Iran is still on. I believe there were some strikes yesterday also. Now, I guess it's no longer the news. You've been hearing it and perhaps seen the cues, felt it this morning. Nigerians woke up to estimated increase of petrol about 12.7% in the cost of premium motor spirit, that's petrol, and the price jumped in the list from about 868 to 998. And this latest development, I'm sure you've seen it in your neighborhood. Well, let's get reactions now. The Nigeria Labour Congress has demanded an immediate reversal of that recent, and they say, what next after increase in petrol? The Labour president, Mr. Joe Ajero, argues that it is an aberration for a private company such as the NNPCL to fix prices of a market force-driven commodity. We'll delve into some of those intricacies. More reaction now from CPPE. There's also a reaction that the Center for Promotion of Private Enterprise, CPPE, has condemned it, and they're saying that in their latest issue, they say that Nigeria's economy is not ripe for full-blown deregulation of petrol and market principles on all fronts. The CPPE chief, Dr. Muda Yusuf, recommends that government should urgently cut import duties and taxes by a minimum of 25% on all industrial raw materials and passenger buses of 18-seater and cars of 2,000 cc engine capacity. Well, we know that this is, well, a suggestion by Dr. Muda Yusuf on this might be another subsidy, but there's so many things, you know, to discuss concerning this. NNPCL is supposed to be a private company. They're not supposed to have the power to dictate the price and all of that. But we do know there's still that subsidy element, which perhaps brings the question of the operation of NNPCL as a private company. And we know that the president has over a year ago pronounced that there'll be no more subsidy. But that's not the reality. We all know that by now. So are we saying that subsidy is out by now? And we also see this suggestion by Dr. Muda Yusuf, a way to perhaps create a buffer, which is another subsidy for the people in the transition. But let's talk about this now with Dumebi. Dumebi Oluwole is Associate Analyst with FDC, Financial Derivatives Company. So, Dumebi, I wonder how your experience, you were here on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Was it the same experience coming here
no,
today?
It was worse today.
Wow.
It was today. The queues are a lot longer. There's a lot more traffic. People are more angry. They're driving really rough, trying to, you know, get some fuel. To think we had a conversation.
But I did notice that, like, yesterday and the day before, a lot of the petrol stations, including the NNPC, were not open.
Yes.
But this morning they're open.
Yes, this morning they are, and to be fair, not even all of them are open, but we did see more filling stations open compared to Tuesday. So there are a couple of things that obviously are at play here. Some are speculative because we do expect that when markets are changing like this, there are certain pointers as to what could be happening on an economic level, and then there are facts. So starting with the facts, we do know that what is happening with the current pricing structure for PMS in Nigeria today is reflective of the cost of Dangote right now. What
do you mean by that?
Yeah, so right now, we saw that the NNPC did mention that the price at which they are getting petrol now from Dangote refinery has increased from about 898 naira per liter to 977, meaning that their price also to the pumps have also increased. Their retail price would also have to increase in tandem.
Can we connect this to the global side? Because we still have global oil price still around 74, even though, I mean, we do know that the crude is bought in features. So it's a contract. Whatever you want to buy today, you pay for it and all of that.
And that, to an extent, does make sense as to one of the reasons why prices are higher, because by this time, let's say a month ago, PMS Brent crude was almost $80 per barrel. Yes. So if you locked in that contract, yes. So if you locked it in at that time for about $80 per barrel, or even 79, or even 82, it means that what you will be getting now, your crude now will be more expensive because you locked it in at a higher price at the time. So it's people locking prices now that would obviously benefit from a lower crude oil price compared to about a month or 2 months ago.
I think 2 months or so.
Yes, but basically, looking at the current situation with the one buyer, one seller situation that's currently happening right now with PMS, first of all, we do know that it's a cost-reflective thing that is currently happening. Dangote is pricing the PMS as he's producing, and that's reflective of his cost. And one of the things that we do know is a point that, like you mentioned, the increase in global crude price. Remember, on Tuesday I mentioned that the Naira for crude deal we won't start seeing the benefit of that entirely because it just started October 1st. So meaning that there's going to be that time lag between when that would have a positive impact on crude oil, on PMS prices. And more importantly, when you analyze the amount of crude that Dangote is actually going to be receiving from Nigeria, from NNPC, when we look at how much that would give to them, how much they'll be able to produce in terms of PMS per liter, what that gives us is about 6 to 10 million liters per day. And Nigerians consume about 36 million liters of PMS every day. So what that means is that there is a gap.
But let's not forget maybe that
Yes.
I believe that as a refinery, Dangote has they already have some feed, some stock feed, because we did hear some time ago that they were importing WTI, which is cheaper, and I believe they said there's a mix, there's a mix in the crude and all of that. So I guess that Dangote would also be looking at other sources for crude, so the country is not stranded.
Yes, and that's exactly where we're headed. So if they are getting other sources for crude, how will they pay for that? That's in dollars. And if they're paying for that in dollars, it means that at the moment, they still have a blended exchange that they're working with that's making their cost of production actually high. Because for them to meet that gap I mentioned in terms of consumption, which right now is about 20 million liters, 24 million liters, for them to meet that gap to satisfy the entire petrol consumption in Nigeria as of today, it means that they would have to still keep importing to meet that gap. And what that means that their cost of production is still relatively higher. But primarily, I would say that this is a teething problem with Nigeria's current PMS pricing structure. And there is room for us to make sure that there's some level of stability. And one of the things that I mentioned, and this is where you are now going to be indication of some of the things that are happening right now. Where we are headed right now, number one, it does point to the fact that there has to be an increase in Nigeria's refining capacity. So all our defunct refineries, I know I said this on Tuesday, but repeating it is extremely important because this is where it does lay emphasis on. We cannot solely rely on Dangote because remember, he's doing business, right? And if everyone has to follow that, so
he can decide to export.
Of course he can decide to export. It's his business. We can't dictate what he does with his business, just like we can't dictate what any manufacturer would do with their products, right? If he decides to change his business model today to say import, he has a right to. But again, remember, because we're in a position where Nigeria needs as much PMS as it can, considering the shocks that we've had and the knock-on effect of higher petrol prices to food prices, to cost of living, he's extremely important, for this particular period.
But I think maybe at the end of the day, because I don't know, I'm a Nigerian, so can I please for a minute speak as a Nigerian?
Yes, please.
We're just tired of all the uncertainty.
Yes.
Can we now say that subsidy is gone so that we can actually know for a certain this is the price of petrol? If there's a change in the global space, we can expect a change and not say, oh, government is paying subsidy today, tomorrow government is not paying subsidy. You know what I mean? Can we now truly say there's no more subsidy in this equation? So we are just, I can go and buy, it's expensive, but that's it. And then we can now hold government to account to say, you were supposed to be paying subsidy, you stopped. What is that fund being used for? I mean, I think Nigerians just need to understand some of this.
Yes, and you're very right about it, because in governance there is that part of the government to play, to be transparent on how they are making money, how they are spending money, and the policies that they are putting in place. So you're very right that there's a lot of policy uncertainty, and to one extent that's one of the things that's currently affecting the economy today from an investor standpoint. If investors are uncertain about how your policies are being placed, and they are not even sure of the time frame for when price shocks like this are going to happen, it does have a huge and negative impact on the broader economy. So so I do think that conversation needs to be had for all of this to somewhat adjust itself.
Yeah, because even when you look at the capital importation, you see that oil and gas only brought in about 5%.
Yes.
And this is our almighty oil and gas.
Yes.
But a lot of those uncertainty, it's not just frustrating the Nigerians in Nigeria, it's also frustrating investors. And so when we keep crying, we're looking for FX, we want to attract FDIs, and people are looking, are you really serious? Because we cannot predict the trend in your economy, then why should I even do that?
Exactly. You're very right about that. And Again, like I would say, this is a huge deficit that is currently happening with the government, and how it relates with all other economic agents, from investors to business owners to consumers. And until that trust deficit is bridged significantly, we'll continue to see this uncertainty being priced as a risk premium for Nigeria. It would also even come up whenever we want to take up new borrowings, So it's a huge problem that the government needs to significantly fix right now.
Yeah, fix right now.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Dumebi. Well, we will survive. We're Nigerians. We have thick skin, so
we don't have a choice.
We don't have a choice. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for your time, Dumebi.
Thank you for having me.
All right. And so while we're still talking about oil and gas, there's no oil this time. There's also the alternative of gas, cleaner energy. Don't know about cheaper, but LPG, the Association of Liquefied Petroleum Gas Association, believe that one solution to some of this petrol price and all that we're looking at is the conversion, or the attention should be given to cleaner and alternative energy. That's captured in this report. The search for sustainable energy growth in Nigeria has attracted policymakers, lawmakers, as well as industry players to the National Liquefied Petroleum Gas Association 2024 conference. With the entrance of more investors and attention gradually shifting from the use of fossil fuel to cleaner forms of energy, the association believes there's a need.
You will all agree with me that in the recent year, a lot of change has happened to the oil and gas industry in Nigeria. So many progress has been made, and there are so many miles to be covered. And as a stakeholder that is passionate and concerned about the future of the industry, we deem it fit to call a meeting of stakeholders and brainstorm on some of the opportunities we have and other challenges. Whatever we discuss here is going to be a communique that will be sent out to the public, to the government in authority as a way forward. And we find it essential that there's a need for us to meet and provide how we want the future of this industry to be shaped.
With Nigeria's proven natural gas reserve of 206.53 trillion cubic feet as at January 1, 2021, according to the Department of Petroleum Resources, the federal government invites all to make its gas plan work.
Our target is ambitious to increase LPG consumption in Nigeria to 5 million metric tons per annum by 2030. This goal is achievable if we continue to build the necessary infrastructure, ensure market stability, and promote policies that incentivize investments in the LPG value chain. I commend the Nigerian Association of LPG Marketers for your critical role in this value chain.
Safety amidst the adoption is a major concern for the Lagos State government.
You need to work more with our states. We need to partner effectively and efficiently. While as a government, we put a lot of organization to ensure safety of life and property, to ensure that you bosom economically with your products. We appeal to you to please pay your tax very well.
The federal government has been seeking ways to accelerate gas adoption, not just for LPG, but also CNG. The latest being a flexible payment plan for the conversion of vehicle engines to run on compressed natural gas as part of efforts to get Nigerians embrace the fuel as an alternative energy source.
These are captains of industry that they have to give their time,
That's right, looking at gas now as an alternative as petrol price hike continues in the country. And of course, some of those will be feeling this, individuals, businesses, especially small businesses. Our guest that we had yesterday told us how some businesses are actually dying off. But perhaps there's a relief coming the way of small businesses. The withholding tax implementation is supposed to have started a couple of, less than 2 weeks ago. But let's see the true status of it now. We'll be discussing that with the Senior Manager, Commercial Practice Group at Anderson. His name is Vincent Okokoni. Please do come in. Okokoni, thank you so much for your time. Good morning.
Good morning. It's good to be here.
Yes, I wonder how much you fill your car now with the new petrol price.
Well, give it around, say, 65, 70,000.
Wow.
Thereabouts.
That's a deep decrease on purchasing power.
I mean, it's what it is. It's biting on everyone. But I think, I hope, even though people say hope is not a strategy, but we can only hope that things will get better in the nearest future.
And when you think about that, think about your car, and then think about the operations of small businesses. Even though, reports say that electricity supply has improved, hopefully, even though you have to pay more, pay through your nose. But, I wonder what this would do to small businesses. I guess the withholding tax relief should, I don't know if it's enough to give a buffer for small businesses.
Well, I think for business owners, anything that would amount to reduction in cost would be welcome development. In business, people are in business to make profits, and ordinarily you want to maximize your earnings, you want to increase your revenue, you want to increase your profits, but that may not necessarily be, within your control. So perhaps what you can control is more of, reducing the cost. Even if your revenue or income, stays static, if you're able to, cut down on costs, your profits will then, increase. So for me, the withholding tax regulations, as we've seen in the Gazette that was issued, 1st of October, or 2nd of October rather, I think generally for businesses, especially SMEs, who have had to, contend with increasing costs of doing business just like every other business. But I think with the, exemption from withholding tax, it provides a bit of relief, in terms of...
How much relief, really?
So again, because they are small businesses, you want to, if you look at the absolute value of, the revenue or the income they generate from businesses, you might want to say it's not a lot. But typically there would be, small margins for SMEs and maybe people in manufacturing. The profit margin may not be a lot if you compare, their net profit with their revenue because of, the high cost of production and manufacturing and all of that. So if you look at it in absolute terms, you will probably say maybe it's not a lot of relief. But if you look at the impact on the margin, these are businesses that, ordinarily contend with them, low margin in terms of profitability. And then it affects their cash flow adversely. So for example, if I'm a small business and I've made supplies, I expect, because I need cash to run my business, the customer has then deducted withholding tax based on what the law, prescribed as, before now, as she used to have it. So where you have that instance where customers have deducted withholding tax, on my cash, which was the right thing to do as at then, it means that my cash flow position, maybe worse off, and then I don't have sufficient cash to, effectively run my business. But with this exemption from withholding tax, what it means is that my cash flow position would be better, and then my profit margin would also, at least even if it's not going to, increase significantly, it would not reduce because of that exemption from withholding tax. So I think generally it's good news for small businesses and even for manufacturing companies who ordinarily have to deal with low margin of profitability. So it helps, improve their cash flow positions.
Yeah, but in a country like Nigeria, where the tax net is really slim now, we are talking of expanding it to capture more taxpayers. Correct. And we describe a lot of our businesses or our economy as informal. I wonder how many people of the small businesses in operation now will even be captured in this to even if it's a marginal impact.
Yeah, you are correct. And over the years, the tax authorities have, tried to put in measures in place to, try to expand the tax net and bring in, more taxpayers. If you look at the withholding tax regulations, one of the objectives is to, expand the tax net, curb evasion, and also simplify compliance processes. So, for example, where for non-passive income, for example, where you provided services to a customer, and if you don't provide a tax identification number, a TIN, what the regulation says is that the customer, when deducting, should deduct twice the amount. So, for example, if the transaction amount is, say, 100 naira, for example, and the rate is 5%, ordinarily what the customer should deduct is 5 naira, right? But if I, as a business, the supplier, if I do not have a tin and I have not supplied the customer with a tin, what the law says is that that customer should deduct twice the amount, meaning instead of suffering withholding tax of 5 naira, I would now suffer withholding tax of 10 naira, which is double the amount that would have been deducted. So in a way, that would force me, to regularize my business, register with tax authorities, obtain a tin, so that I prevent that instance where customers have to deduct double the amount they will have deducted, because ultimately what it will mean is that I will have less cash, to run my business. And like I mentioned, there have also been measures that have been put in place. I mean, the state tax authorities, for example, the LRS, I've seen instances firsthand where, there were measures, to try to provide taxpayer education, especially for, people in the market, small businesses and all of that, to try to, educate them on why they need to pay tax. And then there's a, collaborative system where you are able to, agree on the method to, to assess them to income tax. And then I think overall, if all of these measures are put in place, it can help, So on the one hand, it's going to, expand the tax net by bringing in more taxpayers, and then you're able to then sell to them the idea, of the benefits that they can stand to gain from these regulations.
I want to ask you, you have a lot of first-hand interaction with both, the government and taxpayers, and all of these reforms. How effective would you say it has been in getting more people into the tax net in reality?
I think there's been some successes that have been recorded, even though I think a lot more can be done. So, for example, you have instances where so there's a particular office in the FRS, for example, the non-resident persons tax office, and that office, what it tries to do is to, review transactions between Nigerian companies and offshore entities, and try to establish where legitimately there's tax presence or there's any tax to be paid, through cooperation with the Nigerian companies. They're able to, get information relating to the non-resident company, and then where it is established that the non-resident companies are liable to tax in Nigeria, those conversations can be had around, paying taxes. So in a way that could help expand, the tax net. There's also the, automatic exchange of information multilateral agreement that Nigeria is a signatory to. What that means is that the tax authorities in each jurisdiction that are signed up to that agreement, can exchange information, between those competent authorities, such that, so for example, if a non-resident company has made money from Nigeria by some business transaction, say in the UK, for example, the tax authorities in Nigeria and the UK can, exchange information.
But I'm talking of the domestic, especially small businesses. Is there an improvement in putting them in the net?
Yes, there are successes.
Sounds like it's very minimal.
But in the end, yes, some good news in terms of what has been achieved, but I think a lot more can be done. There's been investment in taxpayer education, like I mentioned, both on the part of the FRS and on the part of state tax authorities, because sometimes it's about not being aware, for businesses to say, okay, I'm not even sure what I'm supposed to do. Yes, I want to pay, but I don't know how to pay, or I don't know how to go about it.
I don't even know if this tax is being used
so
for
a
what
lot of
it's
taxpayer
supposed to be used for.
there's been
I think
investment
that's a bigger one. We have to stop there. Vincent Okoni, Senior Manager, Commercial Practice Group at Anderson. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
The enlightenment this morning.
Thank you.
All right, so just before we head back, we'll tell you that yesterday was a red market again at the NGX. About 56 billion naira was shaved off the market cap, even though we're holding very slightly to the 56 trillion naira market cap level, but anything could happen. The activity chart was mostly red. Sectors yesterday, a lot of them banking, major, four of the figures went down, so we see it was down. And then insurance was down, oil and gas also down at the close of trade. But we'll give you intraday numbers at 1 p.m. That'll be Business Incorporated. I'll be here along with Laddie Williams. We'll do 55 minutes around the world of business right here. But now let's head back to the Sunrise Daily Studio.